Here's the uncomfortable truth about sleep. Many of us are trying to perform to high standards at work on low quality sleep, and it's costing us more than we realise. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Diane.
And this is Headflex. Today we're talking about sleep. Welcome to Headflex, the podcast where you can listen to real-time coaching conversations to learn more about coaching and yourself.
Join us, Rebecca and Diane, coaches with years of experience, to flex the sometimes messy hot topics in the workplace that we don't always talk about.
So, we're going to be looking at why are we even talking about this today? What are the mistakes we make about sleep? And what are some of the practical ways you can improve sleep quality and quantity?
Brilliant. Great subject. I know it's a subject you're quite interested in, actually. So I'm quite keen to get stuck into this one. So why then are we even talking about it? Sleep's just a thing, right?
I know. And we're not sleep doctors. We're not experts in sleep. No, and we can talk about that later on. But I think what's quite interesting is that in the coaching room, often people are coming in to talk to us. And one of the effects of the things that they're struggling with is their sleep. And therefore, you start to become interested in sleep and patterns and why somebody might be struggling either to fall asleep or they do that classic kind of wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning where you could probably have a party around the country at that time with the amount of people that are waking up at that time of night. So I think as coaches, you have to become naturally curious about what's getting in the way and what are some of the behaviors and patterns that we're seeing that might be interfering kind of with that sleep, really.
And I think it's quite significant if it's been a change, sort of a recent change. So if somebody's sleep pattern has changed quite significantly, I think that's something that tends to come up, doesn't it? But it also seems to be one of those where you'd be quite deep into conversation, maybe a couple of sessions in before somebody says, oh, and actually, this isn't happening either. And I think that's one of the things, isn't it? Sleep gets put on the back burner. It's something that we sort of see as fairly insignificant, but actually it can have a huge impact on people.
And it's always the thing that comes behind everything else, right? So work and family life and, even Netflix and scrolling, and, everything comes before sleep. And it's almost like this kind of leftover thought at the end of the day where we just think, oh, and then we go to sleep and we miraculously expect our bodies and mind to just go, oh, right, time to sleep now, let's crack on and fall asleep. But it doesn't always work like that. So I think there's something around just continuing, like we always do in coaching, is to grow your awareness and be really curious about yourself and what might be getting in the way of this. And to, if anything changes in your life, like suddenly you're not sleeping properly, that's a signal that other things maybe you need to talk about and, address really.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Yeah. We need to take it seriously, I guess, is what we're saying, isn't it? Because I think sometimes we just let it go and think, oh, it'll pass, it'll sort itself out. We don't put much attention to it. And I think that's what happens.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's there for a reason. It's how we reset. It's how the body starts to look after itself and get ourselves ready. And I suppose can have quite a lot of impact if we're not sleeping.
Yeah, and you kind of process memories, you re-energize, your brain goes into rest patterns. So when you wake up, you're kind of more able to kind of cope with the world. So there are reasons why sleep is important. I think there's a balance here between not putting so much pressure on yourself. You hear people saying, I really need to sleep. And I just lie there getting really frustrated with myself. And it's like, no, okay, it's okay just to let's go gently. This is the subject of sleep, I think, is one where, and I love the subject of self-compassion, but it's a biggie for self-compassion, being really kind to yourself. And rather than kind of beating yourself up about not being able to sleep, it's really thinking, okay, I'm really struggling right now. What do I need to do to really look after myself? And how can I just think about this in a slightly more peaceful way? Than slightly kind of.
Because it is an interesting topic, isn't it? If you bring it up, certainly with women our age, we can rattle on about this for hours because it is something that people can get a little bit obsessed with and hang on too much. And I think that sometimes happens. And everyone's got a sleep story. If you sit there and we start the conversation, so I had a terrible night's sleep, and then everyone's got something to say. And I think the self-compassion side of things is lovely to bring that in and just say, just be kind to yourself. Sometimes you're not going to sleep that well. Sometimes you might do. Sometimes it's okay. And I say that as somebody with a terrible relationship with sleep. So it's quite nice sometimes to give yourself permission that it's fine.
Yes. Yeah. To kind of take that pressure off. I think it's really, really important. So I wonder whether just thinking about, we'll have heard it, we've read up on all of these things, just thinking about some of the kind of mistakes that people can make around sleep that you think really support sleep. And I think one of the big ones is that we think that sleep starts with bedtime. Like we were just saying, actually, everything comes before sleep. And then we just, okay, now it's, 10, 11, 12 o'clock. It's time to go to sleep, and we expect it all to happen. Actually, preparation for sleep happens along, much before that.
And I think that, for someone like me, that's so boring. What, I've actually got to start thinking about sleep now? Sleep will just happen. It'll be fine. I'm having fun. I don't want to think about my sleep routine or anything like that. And I know routine's a thing as well, isn't it? That really helps. And I think, for me, that's been quite interesting in that I haven't ever been a very good sleeper, and had recently had the opportunity to be coached on my sleeping, which just came out of nowhere. I've always been very accepting of not being able to sleep and been fine with it. And 4 or 5 hours has always been fine. And, I probably get more than that. It feels like that. It's probably more, really. And it's never bothered me. My energy levels have always been fine. And when I sort of did go there and start talking about it and start actually really thinking about it, because that's what coaching is really, isn't it? It's not necessarily talking, it's the thinking, opening all those thinking doors that perhaps I've been dancing around and quite enjoying being closed.
Doing it quite effectively as well. Sleep for the last few years.
Yeah. And I started to really think about what was going on there, and I didn't know, no idea. And so when we talk about sleep starts before bedtime, I didn't know what was good sleep and what was bad sleep. And the coach I was working with asked me a brilliant question. And she said, when do you have a good sleep? What's going on? So is there a particular day of the week, for instance, that you sleep well? And I was like, no idea. And so for me, all that came out of that coaching, which was brilliant, was to track it. And just to track what is going on. When do I sleep well? When don't I sleep well? What's going on for me on those days? And part of the conversation was, I don't really know, but I am really productive on a Tuesday. I love a Tuesday. You've landed well today. Yeah. It is Tuesday,
Happy
isn't
days.
it? And then I worked out that actually a Monday I do sleep better, and it's probably because I exercise in the morning. If I exercise late at night, that doesn't really work. And I'm starting at my age to work out what some of those unlocking bits might be to help me sleep better, and to do what you're saying there, which is think about what helps you to sleep, therefore how to start your kind of sleep routine, I guess. And so just tracking, just trying to learn myself and learn what's right and what's not right for me. And that's the same thing with everything we do, isn't it? In coaching, it's all so personal. You can't just say, do this, take some magnesium, you'll be fine.
Does help though. Yeah, and plenty of tennis in the morning, not the evenings from now on then, Diane. So yeah.
Maybe,
yeah. But I think that point you made about actually routine and structure is really important, because, often we think, oh, we'll just, we can burn the candle at both ends during the week, and we'll just catch up at the weekend. I'll just sleep a lot of the weekends. And that doesn't always work, because your body isn't getting into a routine. So you're not telling your body and your brain that it's time to sleep, to allow those kind of cortisol levels to start dropping so you can actually get into that rest state. And I was reading, there's a great sleep expert that we'll share in the notes actually, but she talks about the fact that the most important part of your being able to sleep better is actually the time that you wake up in the morning. So actually the time that you set your alarm for. So even at the weekends, it's trying to get up out of bed at the same time in the mornings, because that then helps support all your circadian rhythms. So it's fascinating that your sleep, tracking your sleep and just figuring out, okay, what was going on? Did I get up at the right time? Did I get up at the similar time? Natural light in the morning helps stimulate everything to then by the time you go to bed, your cortisol levels are starting to drop. So yeah, so I think it's a mistake to just think, I'll just catch up with it all at the weekend.
Yeah. I'm kind of the opposite of that.
You are, yes.
Yeah. Because as you're saying that, I'm thinking, does that mean I have to go to bed early at the weekend? That's never going to happen.
That's why I don't work with you on a Monday. Oh, yeah. So, and the other thing is classic, it's just like that stimulation of caffeine and, what can I get down me to keep me going during the day? And actually it stays in your system, again, probably after 11 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock. Some people can really deal with caffeine. Most people can't. So actually, when do you switch to the decaf?
Yes, and energy drinks. I see a lot of that, very
Yeah.
popular, and people, it's like the coffee. You kind of start leaning on it, don't you? And that's what gets you through the day, and that's fine. And my energy's okay because maybe it's stimulating it with caffeine in different forms. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
And I think there's that thing about feeling like, because you're not sleeping and you don't need so much sleep, that's because I'm really super productive and I'm busy and I've got loads going on. And whether that's true, I'm not sure.
Well, we tell ourselves all sorts of interesting stories, don't we, to support our behaviours. And that's part of coaching, which is, okay, let's look at some of the belief systems that you're holding on to that might not be so helpful at the moment. Or, some of the behaviours or the patterns of language are like, just back up a minute here. I've noticed that this is a pattern now that seems to be affecting sleep. Let's talk about that. So it's not that we're talking necessarily about, going into sleep. People sometimes need, specialist sleep doctors to manage sleep, particularly around insomnia and things. But just noticing those patterns and those tracking, I'm intrigued as to what comes out of your tracking, Diane. Maybe we should do a whole other podcast and I'll just interview you.
You and me both, to be fair.
About the knowledge that comes out of your own sleep patterns. So yeah.
And that was interesting for me when I was being coached, was my language was being challenged. My acceptance particularly was being challenged. It's really interesting.
She was brave.
Yeah, she was good. She was good.
So I'm just thinking about some of the things that we've heard that have really, supported people. I think there's that classic one, isn't there? That transition to sleep. So actually, what does the hour before you're getting into bed, switching your lights off really look like? Often it's lying in bed, doing a bit of doom scrolling until your eyes start to drift off. So, and some people are fine with it. But again, it's worth just paying attention to it, because if your sleep is being disrupted at like 3 or 4 in the morning, it's probably because the cortisol levels have started to rise, and they kick in at about 3 or 4 in the morning, and you feel like you can get up and do a full day's work. I mean, when I was in corporate life, my general wake up time was 3 or 4 in the morning every day, because that was when my body and brain was telling me to wake up. So it's like, ding, I'm here.
And
ready
were
to
you
go.
aware of any impact that was having on your day-to-day, on your productivity?
I think probably I was slightly addicted to adrenaline at that point. So it was just, I could keep going, going back to that point of like, well, I'm really productive because actually I could just get up at that time in the morning and keep going. But the impact over time is that, it affects all your immune system. And I started to feel really tired and bit brain foggy. So I had brain fog before even I hit my 50s because of sleep. So I think, again, it's just being aware of some of the impact that it has on you. Not everyone experiences it. Some people are totally fine for quite a long time. So personal, sleep, isn't it?
And
to
I
each
think
individual.
Thinking about if any of those things are happening to you, or if you're noticing your energy levels are lower, or you're noticing that, you're perhaps not thinking as quickly as usual, or, problem solving as well. Maybe just think, oh, actually, do I need to pay some attention to my sleep? Because like we said earlier, right at the beginning, sometimes it's the last thing that we give any attention to. So maybe it's just thinking about, put that on the checklist. Is that something I need to just be mindful of at the minute?
Yeah. And then I think, we're recording this, aren't we, just as the kind of mornings are getting lighter. But, there's a lot of evidence about actually when you wake up is to get exposure to natural light as soon as possible. Yeah, I really noticed that I sometimes meet a friend for an early morning cycle about 7 in the morning. We'll just cycle for an hour along the river. And the way that I feel that day, and then my resting in the evening is so much better because of that kind of immediate natural light. So again, you can get all of those, the natural light, alarm clocks and all sorts of things. But there's a lot of evidence that shows that again, those morning schedules, but then the quality of your sleep later on in the day is really important. So yeah, just being aware of these things, isn't it? And, like we said in coaching, it often comes in. So we kind of get underneath what's really going on.
Yeah.
And then encourage people to explore that for themselves.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because the things that are good for you often feel good. Like I noticed this morning, I got up really early and to get an early train, and it was light and bright, and it made me feel so much better. It's not like trudging to the train station in the dark and the rain. I mean, obviously I'm in Manchester, so it's going to rain, but other than that, it was lovely.
Yeah,
it felt great. So I think, if it feels good, it probably is good.
Yeah. So I think the message you really hear is like, be super kind to yourselves, take the pressure off, right? A few nights of broken sleep isn't going to suddenly set you back. You can still perform. You can still show up as a parent, as a partner. These things, it's not so detrimental that you need to be really tough on yourself. So it's just finding ways. It's learning, it's exploring more about yourself so you can do that. So yeah. So I'm wondering whether we go to our our self-coaching questions at this stage
I think it's time.
to
Yeah,
enable
let's do
people
it.
to do some work at home by themselves.
Yeah.
So at the end of every episode, we offer 3 coaching questions to help you reflect and apply the ideas we've discussed. Take 5 or 10 minutes today to pause and think about these questions. Question 1. What signals are you currently giving your brain at the end of the day? Are they encouraging rest or stimulation? Question 2. If your sleep improved by just 20%, what impact might that have on your energy, focus, or mood at work? And question 3. What is one small sleep habit you could improve this week? We'd love you to comment below if you've discovered a sleep habit that works for you. Your experience might help someone else.
Great stuff. And thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to Headflex wherever you listen and watch for more coaching conversations. And if you're thinking about coaching for yourself or your teams, do drop us a note. We'd love to chat.